Welcome back to AM Agenda. Kate Lundy and Mitch Fifield are on our panel of politicians today. Mitch, today the opposition is again under fire over its election costings, this time in an SMH report which claims that Joe Hockey lied when he said the costings had been audited by an accounting firm. You'll all recall that this was a big deal in the last week of the election campaign. Now that firm actually says that its work for the coalition was, quote, not of an audit nature. So, Mitch Fifield, what's your response to that? Joe Hockey wouldn't have deliberately misled Australians over that, would he?
No, certainly not. I mean, this is a bit of a semantic debate. We indicated during the election campaign that we had engaged one of the big five accounting firms to verify the accuracy of our costings. The accounting firm did that. We released that information to the public. We pursued that course because there was a question mark over the government's costing arrangements. You recall that there was a leak of information from that process, so we thought it was the right thing to do to get an independent accounting firm to check the accuracy of our costings, and that's what they did.
But it wasn't an audit, was it, Mitch Fifield? So this was an oversight perhaps from Joe Hockey when he said that an audit had been conducted of your costings.
Well, I think Joe was using the word audit in the colloquial sense, the common sense which the public would understand, which is having your numbers checked, and that's what happened.
Is that a fair enough explanation, Kate Lundy?
Look, even the local treasurer at the junior football club knows what audit means. I think this was deliberately misleading by the coalition. I think to listen to Mitch Fifield now use words like, oh, it's semantic and that we verified those accounts, it's just not good enough. The stakes are so high, Ashley, in the week before an election, and this to me is a prima facie case of lying to the electorate and trying to get through on the back of a very important untruth, because it was about the state of the budget and the Liberals' costings. Nothing could be more serious in the last week of an election campaign.
Well, Kate Lundy, the government's also the target of a negative newspaper report today, this time in the Australian. It says that the number of federal public servants in the Northern Territory has doubled since mid-2007. Is the government confident that the NT intervention isn't just drowning in bureaucracy? Looking at these numbers, it certainly suggests that. Are you sure that resources aren't being wasted there?
Well, I think if you actually look inside those numbers, it's very easy for the Australian to say, well, 50 here and 100 here. The positions are things like community liaison officers, people on the ground providing meals to school children, all sorts of direct jobs providing direct services. So again, I think there's a massive difference between Liberals lying about election budget costings in the final week of a federal election and a story about how Labor is delivering real services to Indigenous people through the Northern Territory Intervention Program. They can't be compared.
Mitch Fifield, the very nature of the intervention does require a lot of hands-on help in the Territory, doesn't it?
Oh, of course it does, but I think it's important to remember that Labor were far from enthusiastic when the coalition in government embarked upon the Northern Territory intervention. There was a crisis in child health. There was a crisis in relation to child abuse in the Northern Territory. So, yes, it's important that there was the intervention. Labor, since assuming office, have paid lip service to the intervention, but there are now some serious question marks over the efficacy of this program. Again, perhaps this is another case of Labor failing to administer properly, and we will take the opportunity of Senate estimates to probe and ask the questions. Is it true that whole motels are booked out by government departments and to have only a few rooms taken up? Well, that's just good old-fashioned waste if that's the case. But the most important thing to bear in mind here is we've got to make sure that rather than just have welcome to countries and apologies and smoking ceremonies, which are all fine, that we actually see real improvements on the ground in the community, in Aboriginal communities, and we've got to make sure that we do better.
Kate, I'll just let you respond to that about, for example, these stories of whole hotels being booked out. It sounds like
Labor is not afraid of accountability or scrutiny, and the estimates process is a good opportunity for that. What we are proud of is making a real difference, and I'm surprised the opposition, given they did initiate the intervention, looking more constructively and supporting Labor actually getting people on the ground and making a difference. So I think, bring on the spotlight, because everyone agrees that the Northern Territory intervention is important. It's incredibly important that it is transparent and people know what's going on. And I just think it's surprising that, once again, the Coalition will leap on, a cheap story about the numbers of public service when they know very well, through their own effort, that equates to people on the ground and the job getting done.
Kate, before we go, we all know, of course, the Aussie dollar is right up there with the US at the moment. Is the government concerned about the flow-on effects that it could have for exporters, for example?
Look, I think I don't want to speculate about the value of the dollar, but I think we do understand that in areas where the prices aren't also going up, for example, tourism, manufacturing, that there is an impact. That's why we want to cut the corporate tax rate. And with the Coalition expressing concern about this, we'd expect them to back in that measure that Labor has put forward. They haven't done so yet, but we'd like to see them support our cut to the corporate tax rate.
Well, Mitch Fifield, the Coalition certainly seems to be going on the attack over the dollar. Are you suggesting that the government should be doing more to try to manipulate the dollar to bring it down?
Well, we're obviously concerned that exporters are doing it tougher with a higher Australian dollar. I don't think anyone is arguing that we go back to a fixed exchange rate. Having a floating exchange rate has been a bipartisan policy for the best part of 25 years. But what we are saying is that it's important to remember that when a budget is in deficit, when you're running up debt, you do put upward pressure on interest rates, but there are also other downstream consequences for the economy of running those debts, and there is an impact on the dollar as well.
Okay, Mitch Fifield, Kate Lundy, thanks for your time on AM Agenda this morning.
Thanks very much, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mitch.
For more on